It's New Brew Thursday! Woo! And it's part 3 of our Cigar and Beer Master Pairings, and we are following suit with Bill by doing the 2009 Old Stock, and I don't know why I grabbed this bottle, but I did.
Yeah. Well, that's the bottle we're drinking.
That's the bottle we're drinking, yes. That is not the bottle Bill drank, because that's gross.
You might know North Coast from such beers, or the only beer I can do off the top of my head, Old Rasputin.
Like yes. Classic.
That's the beer you see at like Cost Plus World Market.
And it gets out to restaurants too, like gastropubs and things. Like,
it's
that's
a really good
pretty
beer.
Common beer you can find.
Yeah, it's probably like one of the best. Like
12th anniversary Old Rasputin was pretty hard to find, and it was like Old Rasputin on steroids, where steroids taste really, really, really freaking delicious, and you just want to drink more of those steroids.
They?
Steroids taste delicious.
I don't know. This is not a steroid body, obviously. So
I don't think you eat steroids.
Steroids are pretty tasty.
Are they?
About you guys? I don't know what kind of steroids
like, they never work for me, but I just drink them. I'm not really sure what the needle they send me is for. It kind of tastes
like 5-hour energy. It's delicious.
So while Brad tells his steroid stories, I'm going to go ahead and open this.
I don't think we have enough time tonight.
So this is
for steroid stories.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
This is an old ale.
This is an old ale.
Could also be a barley wine.
I find that the line is very thin between old ale and barley wine, and so like Abacus is kind of billed as a barley wine, but I think it's closer. Personally, in my opinion, I think it's closer to an old ale myself.
Abacus is from Firestone Walker.
Yeah. We should also point out this is barrel aged in bourbon barrels.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the bourbon barrel version.
This is the Cellar.
Cellar Reserve.
How long is it barrel aged?
That is a good question.
Probably a year. We don't know.
And we're saving just a little bit in here because we have Thomas J. Ham, who is basically living with John Holzer now, which is awkward.
But it's a fine
we're going to save him just a little bit.
But
that's the joy if you come watch us.
They do release this as a regular beer, like Old Stock. But the Cellar Reserve is like the barrel aged version, as far as I know off the top of my head, and it's a bit more expensive, and it's really different in my opinion. So, cheers.
So cheers to
New Brew.
Cellaring and bourbon barrel aging. What? That I'm too good for you, man? Is that really what's happening?
This smells so delicious.
Wow. We sort of connected like through everyone else.
This reminds me an awful lot of like the brewery anniversary beers.
Really?
Very similar
smell,
nose.
the nose
very similar
does,
nose. It's got the same kind of sticky sweetness to it.
They have that same really intense barrel character.
Yeah, because I smell that on different things, and I'm always like, that's just the brewery smell, but I don't know exactly what that is.
It's got to be the barrels, because I mean, like, it's funny because to me, like, a lot of breweries will have kind of their own barrel character. I mean, if you have any of like, the Firestone barrel-aged beers or their anniversary beers, I mean, you can smell it blind and you're like, oh yeah, it's Firestone beers because it has that, there's something about their barrel selection that makes it very particular.
It's almost like a thick smell,
It's really rich. Exactly. Yeah.
Like if molasses was a smell, that's how it would smell.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, molasses has a smell, and it's like that sickly sweet, thick aroma to it.
That's not what I meant. I meant
if molasses rallied and got its own.
No, if the viscous quality that is in molasses could be applied to a smell, that's kind of what.
Yeah.
Okay, so this beer smells viscous.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds good.
Does viscous have a smell though?
Well, does molasses?
I don't know. I'll have to get some oil and smell it and see if it smell the viscousness of the oil.
I personally work with hydraulic oil, and it does stink, and this does not smell like hydraulic oil. So.
No.
That's very viscous too.
That's a good thing.
Off track. Anyway, this is a 12.5%
off track
beer, I think. So
it's like
the standard the standard for this is 12.5. I think this bottle's 13.6 though.
Yeah, the barrel just like adds that much more.
Yeah,
definitely
13.16.
Definitely doesn't taste like that.
So definitely something you want to share, I think.
Yeah, if you're cracking a bottle, aside from the cost of this bottle, if you're cracking it by yourself and drinking it all, you're gonna have a really interesting morning.
We paid like We paid $25 for this bottle, and it's. How big is this bottle?
This is not a hard beer to drink, though. I could drink this really easily.
Yeah, it's what I like about this. Yeah, what I like about this over a lot of old ale beers that are aged in bourbon is that while it has that really sticky sweet smell, you don't get it on the mouthfeel.
Right.
It doesn't linger. You don't get that like, oh god, like I just had 2 ounces of it and I don't want more.
I need to sit this down.
Right.
I need to sip
I need an IPA in between sips of this beer.
Right.
I would almost borderline to say this is like one of my favorite old ales that's aged in barrels. Like the first time I had it, it was I was like, whoa, this is good. I thought it was going to be hot or over the top barrel or over the top.
I think it masks its alcohol fairly well, given the style and what it's supposed to.
The alcohol that does come through is like perfect.
It's balanced, completely.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at how one thing that I think this has that a lot of beers of this weight doesn't have is how well carbonated it is.
Yeah, that too,
a lot of times, like beers like this are very, very finely carbonated, which really adds to that like sticky weight.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. The carbonation kind of helps like lift it off your palate. A little.
Even the bubbles when we poured it, they weren't really fine and like they didn't really hang around for a long time. Mm-hmm. It was they were light and kind of airy,
So we are pairing this beer with a Blue Stilton English blue cheese.
Right.
To start off with, blue cheese pairings for something like this. A hard blue cheese goes really well with it. You don't want to do the creamy, like I just melted in the thing kind of thing where it's more spreadable, because I think that really
what's that cheese called?
A brie?
Not a brie, but like there's like a gorgonzola is a little bit more creamy than it is hard.
There's that one though that it's off the top of my head. It's like in its own little shell, and you break the shell open. It's a very popular cheese.
Right.
What is that cheese?
It's that cheese.
It's that cheese.
But that's not a blue cheese though. That's a different style of cheese. I'm talking about different blue because you can do like if I just say like pair this with a blue cheese and they go out and get like gorgonzola or something like that, it's not going to be as good because the creaminess of a gorgonzola will affect the mouthfeel of this beer in a way that you don't want it to. So you want to go with something a little harder, a little bit more firm. So like a Blue Stilton is a perfect beer for this kind of, or a perfect cheese for this kind of beer.
I'll be the judge of that.
We also have on the plate, what is this good stuff right here?
Oh, yes. And always with these kind of beers, what also goes really well is toffee and or like caramel. I went a little heavy on the chocolate side of things. Chocolate is not as good a pairing with this, but the caramel and the toffee work really well with this beer.
That cheese stands up really well.
Yeah, that cheese is perfect with the beer. I'm gonna have a little bit of this stuff. So we have the blue, and this is what's
It's all Blue Stilton.
Oh, this looks a little different. So.
That's the back of the Blue Stilton. So.
Back of the blue.
It doesn't have any of the veiny stuff in there.
That does taste different too. You don't get that saltiness off of it.
Yeah.
Like as much
It's
as
way nutty.
And like I think that the saltiness of the Stilton cheese cuts through the sweetness that we were talking about earlier really nicely, and it just kind of like brings all that stuff down, and it all enhances each other, and they just like they grab hands and they get naked and they tiptoe through
the forest.
Lilies.
What?
Or the forest. What?
Or downtown LA.
It's like when a unicorn jumps over a rainbow, and at the same time, all of the bands that you love create a song just for you that they play for you, and then that unicorn comes back down, and you kill it and eat it. That's what this beer is.
I don't want to kill a unicorn.
Dude, if you could eat
You've been watching too much South Park. No.
What benefits do you get from killing a unicorn? Anyway.
The meat's amazing.
So we're going to take this moment to cut away to the third
I've
cigar.
clearly lost my mind.
Actually, I was gonna say it's funny because the couple of other beers that you did, Levitation, I wasn't there for that one, but it's, obviously delicious beer. And then the Noel was great, but this is one of the first beers I've had where I was like, yes, cigars and this beer. It makes total sense to me. So we're looking forward to the Master Pairings that we're going to.
Check it out.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Master Pairings with your host, Bill Sysak, known as Dr. Bill in the craft beer community. This is the third in our four-part series of Master Pairings beer and cigars. Once again, we're here with Tatiana Peavey. Tell us about your website.
I write for fuglybrew.com, which we go through beer pairings, and now hopefully I'm going to do some more cigar pairings.
Excellent. And of course, James from the Tobacco Barn here in Lake Forest. He's our resident cigar expert.
Hi guys, great to be here.
So you want to tell them about this fabulous cigar that we've already been working on and getting on? Because the first episodes we've toyed with lighting them all at the beginning. Second episode, we had one of them lit, and the second one, and you lit one. But this time we're all going to be in that mid-third range of the cigar, and that's what I wanted to do so we can really get the nuances.
I think this is a great cigar, and It's actually one of my favorites, personal favorites. It's the J21 by Tatuaje, and it's just a fantastic cigar. I mean, very balanced, flavorful, rich, a little bit of spice, a little bit of tingle in your mouth, and it's just a great cigar to pair with something a little bit richer, because it'll hold up to it, and it's just overall, it's a fantastic cigar.
Now this is a Pete Johnson cigar?
It is. It's a Pete Johnson cigar, and Pete Johnson, I guess you could consider him, he's a boutique brand,
Right.
and kind of like the craft.
Right, like the little artisanal craft brewing producers.
Exactly. And so it's really cool where the tobacco industry is going with cigars. Is that there's boutique brands, you're getting personalities out of them. You know, Pete Johnson, San Lucia, Steve Saka, and there's all these names that are now really putting more personalities to cigars, to where you're not smoking a brand, you're actually smoking an extension of, you know, the owner, much like, you know, the craft industry has done that with beer recently.
Right. It's a lovely, really rich, intense cigar. Tatiana, what do you think of this? Because I know you were on a previous episode where we had kind of a slightly more milder cigar. How are you handling this one?
This one, it tastes like a creamy Mexican hot chocolate. You really get that dark cocoa flavor, but you also get some of those spices from, like you said, the nutmeg, a little bit of cinnamon. It's really tasty.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic cigar. Everything you said there is perfect, and it's great hearing your opinion of it, because this is the first time you smoked this cigar, and you're already pulling these flavors, and so I'm really excited to try it with this beer.
So this is the North Coast Old Stock Ale 2009 Cellar's Reserve Bourbon Barrel Aged. It's coming in something like 13.7%, so it's a big boy, but really wonderful. This is their second attempt at this beer, and I think they really nailed it this time. I mean, it's just a lovely beer. Huge bourbon notes, vanilla, which is going to play beautifully with the Mexican chocolate and the nutmeg on this. It's just a fabulous, fabulous beer.
Is this a beer you can kind of get anywhere, or is it seasonal?
No, this is a pretty rare beer. It came out in limited quantities. I like to do beers that are very commonplace and easy to find, so this is fairly rare. What I recommend, if you're looking for something along this pairings, any of the barrel-aged series of beers that come out, for example, Angel Share from Lost Abbey would be a classic example, their bourbon barrel version. A lot of the Firestone Walker beers, things like that. Any barrel-aged beer is going to have that same, in you know, that 9, 10, 11, 12% range. It's going to have that same layers of complexity that this beer picks up.
Do you want me to rinse that out real fast?
No, I think we're fabulous. Cheers, everyone. Now, really nose the bouquet on this beer before you go in. You're going to pick up intense spices, vanilla, winter fruit.
Definitely that vanilla. A lot of brown sugar too.
Yeah, classic, a great thing. For example, I love when they do bourbon barrel imperial stouts, because imperial stout is naturally going to have chocolate and coffee notes, and then when you get the bourbon in, the vanilla plays, and it's great.
It's a fantastic beer. I'm blown away of how smooth it is. It's still rich, but it's balanced. And with this cigar, what I'm getting the most benefit out of it, I think, is when I'm smoking it, I do the retrohale. I'm shooting it out of my nose, and not the full thing, because if you've never done that before, it's intense. So you might want to let a little bit of exhale first, and then you just kind of you're pushing your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and it'll just kind of drift out your nose.
Show them an example of that, James.
I'll show you.
It's not for beginners on a cigar like this. Yeah. I recommend you start with a lighter bodied cigar first.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I've seen guys though just do it the first time up, no problem off the bat. But for some people, it's just a sensation they're not used to. It's smoke coming out of your nose, but you get this beautiful marriage of the cocoa notes and everything the cigar has to offer. You're not losing that with your palate already being saturated by such a rich beer, and so it's good. I mean, this is one that,
if you can master this technique, I highly recommend it. It definitely opens up the flavor profile in the cigar and brings out a lot of nuances that, to be honest, could be actually missed when you're smoking a cigar.
Oh, absolutely. And so you really get to see the benefit of a well-aged cigar. You're not going to get, if the cigar is well-made, you're going to appreciate it more because it's just not going to have that harshness to it. All these cigars that we've tried, none of them have that that bitterness. All of them are well aged, and I think we're really lucky to be where we are, where there's so many great cigars out there right now, and there's just a whole bunch of amazing beers at the same time. So kind of bringing these together and putting a little thought behind it, you can make a beer and cigar night just something incredible.
I think it's excellent to note that the fuggles that are in this beer, they're not intense, they're not citrusy, but you get a really nice, almost like a savory caramel note out of them, especially paired with the spice from the cigar. And I think that it's a really, really great harmony in there.
Tatiana, tell everybody what fuggles are for those of the people
Fuggles
that are not...
are fantastic English hops.
Yes. Great with classic barley wines from the English style and old ales. And old stock is an old ale style. Historically, what they would do is they would save part of the first runnings of the bigger beers, which are the highest alcohol, put them in barrels, big giant tanks, holding tanks actually, and they'd blend them in with other beers, and they'd keep these old stock beers sometimes for a number of years. So I really am I'm in this right sweet part of this cigar right now. I'm getting the most amazing spices coming out of this.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's really good. If I could, do this pairing every weekend, I probably would. But the cigars really add a lot to this. And if you enjoy beer and you thought about trying cigars, this is a perfect way to kind of get into that, because it kind of simmers down the cigars a little bit, the smokiness. If you're not used to smoking a cigar, it's going to help you kind of get into it, and it's an easy way rather than just smoking a cigar by itself.
Once again, I think beer is the perfect pairing for a cigar. I mean, I love, don't get me wrong, ports, Madeiras, sherries, single malt scotches, cognacs, armagnacs, brandies, they're all great. A lot of times those things are so big though, it's more the enjoyment of having a great cognac with a great cigar. It's kind of like when you go to a steakhouse, a lot of people buy a big Cabernet or Shiraz because they know it's going to have this big intense flavors, and they know that it's going to be maybe not the best balanced, but they're going to have a great a great steak and a great Cabernet. Where this, we're getting a really intertwining level of the pairing, where it's really coming through and really playing off of each other really nicely.
Well, let me ask you real quick, what would you do as a meal portion to fit in with this?
I would do something big and rich and creamy. I mean, actually, you could do a few things. A really fun thing that would be with this, if you wanted to go dessert, you could do a great caramelized creme brulee with a really solid top, and it will play really well. The lightness of the vanilla will come in and pair perfectly with the bourbon notes of this, and the caramelization from the top of the burnt sugar will play great with the cigar and back at the beer. You could also do big gamey meats. I think they pair really well with this. Things like lamb, venison, that are really rich and intense. They'll come out and they'll hold their own, but yet you'll balance off of it. You could also do slightly saltier meats, things like sausages, things like that. Bacon, for example, would be a great pairing with this.
And would you try to avoid maybe something more acidic at the same time?
Oh, definitely. You could, and have a nice contrast, and you can play with it, but I think this is not something you're going to have with your balsamic vinegar and oil salad at the beginning of your course.
That could,
I
could see that clash.
You could see that'd be a pretty huge clash.
Yeah.
But the more intense flavors, I mean, it's a good matchup if you're thinking intensity of flavors. Intensity of flavors in the beer, the cigar, and the food plays really well. And I like to do that. I'm doing some cigar dinners at Stone, where I'm kind of doing this triangular effect, where I'm matching the beer to the food and the cigar to the beer and the food to the beer and cigars. I mean, it's all this interplay, and it's just really, really fun. So I think this was a fabulous pairing. It's one of my favorites also, and I want to thank you guys for coming out. Cheers.
Cheers.
And thanks for watching another Master Pairings. Cheers. Hey everyone, here's another tip. The proper way to light a cigar with a cigar lighter. This is Chelsea from the Tobacco Barn. She's one of our cigar experts. Take it away, Chelsea.
Okay, so what you want to do is the most commonly and time-effective way to light a cigar is with a torch. Up here, a very big torch. What you want to do is you want to toast the cigar before you truly light it. And what you want to do is rotate it like this in clockwise to counterclockwise motion, getting a nice black spot on your cigar until you about see red and orange. It means it's about ready, nice and even. You want to puff on that for me? And what you want to do when you light it is He will rotate his cigar as you rotate your lighter clockwise and counterclockwise. And that's how you light a cigar.
And we're back. And thanks once again to Tobacco Barn for letting us come in and shoot those. That was awesome. James knows a boatload about cigars, so
he's
check him out there.
Very knowledgeable man.
Yes.
Young
so
man.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was weird sitting there, like, trying to keep all the cigar smoke out of my face. But they do a good job of ventilation and whatever.
I did a good job of keeping it out of my face.
You stood under the fan. That was so unfair.
Well, that's sweet.
I was gonna
You
say,
did a great job in that case.
I wasn't like able to be there, but they have these like awesome fan mechanisms where you can see all of the smoke being like.
Well, they have really cool ones there because they're not like fan blades. They're just like this round tire thing.
They're anti-fans.
Yeah,
Like,
nice.
It's really weird.
like the opposite of a
Anti-fans.
Dyson like thing or whatever. Yeah.
It's just
The
a round
air
disc that
multiplier.
spins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one.
So anyway, check them out. They're down in Lake Forest, and I think we're gonna start diving into some chocolate now.
Yes, I am.
Or if you're like me, you'll dive into what's
Just the
left.
caramel inside the chocolate.
I ate off all the chocolate.
I really hope the camera's picking up
So
how
that I
disgusting
can-
your fingers are right now.
I hope so too. You guys want some?
That's like
Because I really,
that's a case of epic nibbling, right?
yeah,
there. It's like-
I wanted to pair the caramel with the beer because I tried the chocolate caramel with the beer and it wasn't so good.
With the toffee, it's awesome.
Yeah, this is crazy the way this stuff's working. I'm sorry. I mean just all the pairings like the toffee, the
So what exactly was this?
I think I like
dark chocolate caramel.
I think I like the cheese most actually.
You know, it's funny because with the dark chocolate, like it almost brings out a little bit of like the bitterness.
Right, as it
You
should.
know, yeah, it like creates like an interesting kind of like counterbalance to the beer, like you wouldn't expect. You think they would marry like this meld together, but it has like an interesting kind of contrast effect.
Yeah, you'd think the beer, the sweetness of the beer would meld with the sweetness of the chocolate, and they would like join forces and attack you.
Yeah, I think my favorite so far is probably the cheese. I mean, it seems like a more natural pairing. The toffee's really, really good too. I think overall the toffee blends the best.
Yeah.
To where the flavors kind of cancel each other out, and it's just something that works perfectly. But the cheese, you do get some of that residual saltiness that comes through. It enhances the flavor of the beer and gives you a little something extra. The caramel, you said it brought out the bitterness. I didn't really...
You know what? It's funny though, because after a few more sips, it seems to, like I said, the sweetness almost like cancels each other out in like a weird way, but it brings out like a lot of other flavors that I was kind of missing out on. Like I'm almost getting like a sort of like fruitiness, like more of that like plum fig sort of thing, like along with the chocolate. That's kind of like coming around it,
And funny enough, if you want to do a quote-unquote ghetto pairing that works really well with this, is actually Fig Newtons.
Oh, yeah, good one.
Fig Newtons go really well with this beer.
I could see that.
And I was actually going to do Fig Newtons, but I couldn't find any.
But you're like, I just spent $30 for this beer.
Yeah.
Do I really want to...
No, but see, that's the irony of it. It's like, I spent $30 on the beer, I've blown my entire wad, all I can afford now is a pack of single-serving Fig Newtons.
That makes sense.
And so you're set. But
one Fig Newton.
That would have been cool to have to open those though.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Next time.
North Coast, you freaking rock. Keep making good beer.
Excellent job.
Can't wait for the 2010 to come out next year and try that, see how it tastes. And as always, stay safe and drink beer.